Welcome to the College of Education.
Shakir, and special thanks to Ms. Bryant for getting everything set up. Good to see you all again, and good to see the new students. Welcome. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through competency 6, 7, and 8 and spend some time there. We're going to go through the actual competencies, and then I've got some sample questions, and it will require a little audience participation. So don't worry if you can't come off mute, you can just drop your answers in the chat. The main thing is to get comfortable with the types of questions. So I'm going to review the first couple of slides and then jump down to slides 22. So let's get started. Before we get started, how's everybody doing today? Thumbs up. Everybody's
good.
Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. All right. Who wants to go around and say your name and what date you're going to take the professional?
Okay, I will go first. I'm Jamira Napier-Lawn. I have not registered for the exam. I was asked to do it after the class that I'm in this semester. So I'm starting early, trying to get a jump on learning how to take the test and tricks to help me pass the test.
Okay, wonderful. Nice to meet you, Jamira. Who else?
My name is Erica Lear, and I'm taking the professional this Friday.
This Friday? Okay. Yes.
My name is Sydney Arthur. I'm taking the professional this Friday as well.
All right, welcome. Okay.
Hello, my name is Eva Daniel, and I'll be taking the professional on October 29th.
Okay, wonderful.
Greetings, my name is Nathan Latera. I'll be also taking the professional test this Friday.
Okay, all right. Well, this is great. Did I get everybody? Okay, so the first thing you all have to know when you're taking this exam is that it is written in a way to kind of not necessarily trip you up, but you have to think through the types of questions. So I want to just impress upon you, number one, you've got to visualize that you've already passed the exam, all right? You've got to claim it. You've got to go in with what one of my colleagues talks about as done energy, that you are done and you will complete it. So I just want to level set that. A lot of this is mindset and disposition. And then the rest of it is actually understanding the types of questions that the FTCE is asking you, or the professional is asking you. All right, so let's break down the format, and then we'll jump right into competencies 6, 7, and 8. So the professional education subject area test consists of approximately 110 multiple choice questions. You're going to have 2.5 hours to complete the test, and each of the questions will contain 4 response options, and you will choose the best response, A, B, C, or D, okay? Pay special attention to the best response, right? Because sometimes there could be multiple answers, but you have to use your knowledge as well as your instinct, right, to determine which is the best answer. All right, so back in 2017, out of the 8,736 first-time testers, we had 80% passage rate. Most of the time, when I worked with students in the past, they would study over long periods of time and then go in to take it. So maybe like a semester or summer. So it is my prayer that the folks who are taking it this Friday, that you've put in a little bit more preparation than just coming to today's session. So here's some things that test takers wish they would have known. So you need to spend several weeks preparing. It's helpful to create your schedule for yourself. So as you're preparing, for those folks who are preparing to take it in the coming months or weeks, you want to make sure you break down section by section, topic by topic. That way you have enough time to cover each topic in the test. Then some quick tips. Test takers wish they would have known to watch for questions that include the words not or except, right? Because that indicates that you need to choose the answer choice that does not apply. So keep that in mind. Keep the words not or except in the back of your mind so that if you identify that in the question, you know exactly what it's asking you. You also want to keep an eye on the time. A lot of the research shows, and a lot of my experience with students, is that they run out of time. So keep your eye on the clock. You want to make sure you're able to complete this in a 2.5-hour time frame. And then last but not least, and I think most students know this because this is an old adage, from elementary school. Don't leave a question blank, right? Didn't your parents tell you that, or your teachers tell you that? It's better to guess on a question that you don't know the answer to than to leave it unanswered, okay? So you can also go through kind of process of elimination, but whatever you do, don't leave the questions blank. All right, okay. So there are going to be several types of questions that you will experience in this professional exam. So you're going to have a direct question. It's where you choose the response option that best answers the question. Then you could also have a sentence completion question. Okay, can you think through your test prep, and can you think through what a direct question is versus what a sentence completion question is? Okay. The last type of question that you're going to see is you're going to see a scenario question. And I've got examples of all of these in my slide deck today. So that means you're examining a situation, a problem, or a case study, and then you're going to answer the question, make a diagnosis, or recommend a course of action by selecting the best response, okay? And we'll have some of those types of questions. Any questions on the types of questions and the length of the test and anything that I've shared thus far? You can drop it in the chat, or you can come off mute and ask. Okay, all right, let me jump right to slide 22 so that we can jump right into it. All right. So where we left off at the last workshop was competency 6. And so let's read through the competencies. So this is kind of an extra step, I will say. It is helpful if you can print out the competencies and truly understand the competencies, and then start taking practice questions. Okay, why would I say to print out or memorize the competencies and then start answering practice questions?
Is it because each competency is each question is tailored to a specific competency? So if you understand the competency, you understand the question.
Brilliant. That's exactly it, y'all. If you understand these competencies, you're not going to know every single scenario for the competencies, but if you can understand the basic concepts or the basic principle, it will help you dramatically. Because when you look at the question, you'll be like, oh, that's competency 6. Okay. And that way you'll know. So I would argue you can, Miss Mace, Dr. Shakir and Miss Bryant, they should have a copy of this. If they don't, I'll resend it. But you can print this off and make your own flashcards, okay? And I just cut and paste this from the website. So competency 6, knowledge of the principles of professional conduct of the education profession in Florida. And what you need to know about this competency is that it apply the principles of professional conduct to professionalism and personal situations. So this is talking about you as the educator, you as the professional, and it's making sure that you understand the appropriate disposition that you must have as a teacher. So the next component of this is identify statutory grounds and procedure for disciplinary action and penalties that can be imposed by the Educational Practice Commission against the certificate holder. So meaning, as a licensed teacher, you need to know what you're responsible for and what you could be held liable for. This also helps you understand the rights, legal responsibilities, and the procedures for reporting incidents of abuse, neglect, or other signs of distress. As you know, Florida is a mandate reporting. So there are certain guidelines that you must adhere to if a child comes to your class and they are and you see or you suspect incidences of abuse, neglect, or other signs of distress. You also have to identify and apply policies and procedures for the safe and appropriate and ethical uses of technology, right? So, if a parent asks you, can I log on to iReady or can I log on to this at the house? It may not be a license for that family to do it from home. That license may only be a school license, right? And then also we're coming off of COVID. So, you have to have all of these precautions in place because the devices were going home, right? So making sure the appropriate things are together so that you have ethical uses of technology. Then determine and apply the appropriate use and maintenance of student information and records, right? So who can you talk to about a student? How do you communicate about a student in email? Who do you share the files with? Things of that nature, right? All of this is to protect you as well as to protect the students. All right, any questions on competency 6? All right, let's play some sample questions. So I'm going to read you the question, or actually I can actually have a student read the question, and then we'll come off mute and you can drop your answer in the chat and then we'll come off mute and have a discussion. So do I have a volunteer?
Okay, I'm ready.
Go for it.
When a student with a large bruise on their face is questioned by the teacher, my little thing is in the way. Questioned by the teacher, the student says that they fell at home while playing. Having previously noticed bruises on the student, the teacher suspects that the child is being abused. The teacher is required by law to contact the...
You can read them.
A, abuse hotline. Letter B, guidance counselor. Letter C, school administration. Letter D, social worker.
All right, drop your suggested answers in the chat.
Where's my chat?
I gave you all a hint when I said Florida is a mandate reporting state. All right, I love it. Yes, good job. Okay, so our knowledge of Florida as a mandate reporting state, we know that we must submit it to the abuse hotline. From there, please remember this, from there, the abuse hotline will do the formal investigation and then they will consult you if they need further information, okay? But it's not your job to tell the guidance counselor, school administrator, or the social worker. The abuse hotline will follow the appropriate protocols so that all parties that need to know will know. All right, great work, team, great work. Okay, do I have another volunteer?
I'll read them all, not a problem.
Okay, go ahead.
When parents request copies of software to use at home with their children, a teacher should consult, choose an answer, acceptable use policy, A, B, school technology plan, C, site license guidelines, D, software use procedures.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Why did folks pick C?
You just told us. But,
Just tell you. I did. Yep. That's so, and this is part of the competency. So when you go back to the competency, it's section 4, right? 6. It's competency 6.4. Identify and apply policies and procedures for the safe, appropriate, and ethical use of technology. All right. And then the other one, the first question was apply knowledge of rights, legal responsibilities, and procedures for reporting incidents of abuse and other signs of distress. Do you see how they connect to the various components of the competencies? Okay, very good. Yes, and that's a great question. That's a great point, Sydney. You do have to see if the site even allows you to download copies of the software. Yep. And that's where the site license comes in. And then after the site license, you have, the school technology plan really doesn't apply. Software use procedures could apply, and acceptable use policy could apply, but that's after you even have access to the software. All right, let's break down competency 7. Okay, so this is more about English language learners, okay? And this is about understanding the best knowledge of research-based practices appropriate for teaching English language learners, okay? So you're gonna get a few questions in here that are related to how to help ELL students. So I'll just read a few of these. You can go through kind of at your leisure. But the main thing is you want to make sure that you have an understanding of the role of culture, cultural groups, and individual cultural identities into the learning experiences for all students. Remember, English language learners, depending upon what part of the country, depending upon even what part of Florida you're in, can mean a bunch of different things, right? Haitian Creole, it can mean Cuban American, Mexican American, right? Puerto Rican American. So you're thinking about all of the folks from the diaspora, right? Whether it be the Latino diaspora or the African diaspora, and thinking through the role of their cultural groups and identities and how that impacts their learning experiences. This also analyzes students' developmental characteristics in relation to the first and second language literacy acquisition, right? Talks about interpret the consent decree to think through how you're integrating these different approaches. It also helps you think about how to differentiate your instruction and your materials and your resources based on the multiculturalism and multi-level learning environment, right? So, you don't want to assume that every Latin student is Cuban, right? You don't want to assume that every Black student is Jamaican, if you will, right? You want to think through the various cultural backgrounds. This also helps you analyze the assessment issues and to help you determine the appropriate accommodations based on a ELL's English proficiency level, okay? All right, Jamira, do you want to read them or somebody else?
Sure. Well,
Okay.
if someone else wants to, I don't have a problem. Sample question: which of the following teaching strategies would best show sensitivity to the English language learners' language challenges? Choose an answer. A, displaying the students' uncorrected English work in the classroom. Of course not. Letter B, grouping students by their English knowledge and experience. C, encouraging safe times to use academic English in class. D, assigning students whose first language is English to tutor classmates.
All right, let's give us your answer. I think we touched on this question a little bit last time because Jamira, you had the same reaction as one of the other students when they read letter A. Oh, of course not. And that's good. That means that you all know exactly what you're not looking for, right? Very good. Great. You all, thank you for your responses in the chat. The correct answer is C. So you never want to display students' uncorrected English work, right? You don't need to group the students by their English knowledge or experience because unless you've done the appropriate diagnostic, how would you know, right?
Mm-hmm.
You always want to encourage safe spaces for students to use their academic English, right? So that could be with you one-on-one as the teacher. It could be in small groups with other students and friends. You want to create that safe space because sometimes things don't transfer from the students' home language to their English, and you want to make sure they have space to explore, right? And that the key word here is safe times. And then lastly, assigning students whose first language is English to tutor, that's not appropriate, right? There are tutoring services, I'm sure, at various schools that you can refer to, but you don't assign the students to do that. All right. Great work, everybody. Okay.
Sample question.
Go ahead, Jamari.
A class has students from various cultural backgrounds. The teacher notices that the students of like cultures are exhibiting similar skills and knowledge that differ from students of other cultures. This could be due to the impact of cultural knowledge on A, language, B, habits, C, transfer, D, interactions. transfer.
Oops. Good job. Very good. Yep. The answer is transfer. And let me explain. Does anyone want to explain why, or do you want me to read my definition? Welcome to share why you selected that answer. And that's okay, because it may have been a guess for you, and that's why I'd rather you guess than leave it blank. So it's okay. So let me explain to you why. So ELL children, they may manifest interference or transfer from their first language. So their language 1 to their English language, which is language 2. This means that a child may make an English error due to the direct influence of their first language. Okay, so for example, in Spanish, esta casa es más grande, which means the house is bigger. However, if you literally translate the word más means more, right? And so the literal translation is the house is more bigger. And so a Spanish-speaking child may say the house is more bigger. And that would be them transferring from Spanish to English. Does that make sense to everybody? You remember that from your class? And so this is a normal phenomenon of, language difference. It's not a language disorder. And that's important to understand, because you're going to have some questions that are going to ask you about language disorder, and you got to be able to differentiate the two. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Another tip that I failed to mention, as you are preparing for the professional, go back to the classes that you took and take your notes according to the competencies. So I used to teach social studies methods when I worked at Florida A&M University. And so for the subject area, I would make sure that I had at least sample questions throughout the semester that I was teaching the students, because everything related to social studies came back to my class. So go back to those classes that cover English language learners. Go back to that class that talks about the knowledge, skills, and dispositions, or the professional disposition that you're supposed to have. I have a link at the end of this slide deck where you can look up the course curriculum map so that you know exactly which competency is covered in the course. And if you don't know, work with your professors saying, okay, in this class, what competency am I going to be covering? And I think you need to say that explicitly to the faculty so that they know you're serious about preparing for the professional. You can say, hey, I'm taking the professional X amount of weeks. I want to know what competency your class is going to cover. It should be clearly articulated in the syllabus. If it's not, it's totally an appropriate question to ask the faculty, because each class should build on the test. Does that make sense to everyone?
Sure.
Yeah. Take your notes, y'all. Don't throw away your notebooks. All right. So competency 8. So this is our last one for today. And competency 8 really deals with effective literacy strategies that can be applied across the curriculum to impact student learning. Now, the key wording here with this is can be applied across the curriculum. So not just looking at it in a particular subject area, but looking at how you can apply literacy strategies throughout. All right. So the first one is apply effective instructional practices to develop text and reading skills in the appropriate content area. The next one is to select instructional practices for developing and using content area vocabulary. Determine instructional practices to facilitate students' reading comprehension through the content areas. Apply appropriate literacy strategies for developing higher order critical thinking skills. And then you want to select the appropriate resources for the subject matter and students' literacy levels. And then finally, you want to understand the differentiated instructional practices based on literacy data for all students. So what competencies 8, 1 through 6, what are they saying to us as educators? Does anyone want to kind of give a summary of what is competency 8 telling us?
Okay, I'll take a shoot at it.
Sure.
What it is saying, regardless of one's content area that their area of specialty, you should always try to incorporate things about reading or interconnectivity, the different things, so that the person knows, that your student is not just focused on your math, but understands that English and literacy are a huge part of all that we do to enhance comprehension and understanding.
You ready, Jamira? You can take the test tomorrow.
No.
That's an excellent answer. You want to make sure that it's embedded throughout. You also want to make sure that, that you're transferring these strategies across content areas. So just as Jamira said, those math word problems, you can use that as an opportunity, yes, to develop efficacy in math, but it's also an opportunity to help determine your instructional practices to facilitate reading comprehension throughout, right? You can do that in social studies. You can do that in science. So this is one that is cross-disciplinary. That's why it's applied across the curriculum to impact student learning. Because we know the research says if the students cannot read, it's going to be very difficult for them to master the other content areas. It also impacts, a student's self-esteem and how they approach the other content areas as well. All right, take it away, Jamira.
Okay, a teacher is preparing students for a statewide assessment. The teacher asks the student to underline the bold type in the question on the practice test. This test-taking strategy is known as, choose an answer, A, rereading the entire text, B, recognizing the key words, C, eliminating the wrong answers, D, skimming through the passage.
Now, this kind of question, you're going to choose the best answer, right? Because there are several viable answers here, but you want to choose the best answer. And the trick to understand what the best answer would be is with this sentence. The teacher asked the student to underline the bold type in the questions. Yes, yes. Good job, everybody. So recognizing the keywords. Yep. That's the strategy. Very, very good. Okay, next sample question.
A teacher instructs students to read a selection and then retell the information from the selection. The students are using the study skill of A, summarizing, B, clarifying, C, synthesizing, D, classifying.
All right, drop your answers in the chat. All right, good job. A, summarizing is correct, right? When the teacher asks the student to read a selection and then retell it from their own words, they're summarizing, right? You just have to know the difference between summarizing, clarifying, synthesizing, and classifying. And all of this will come in your English methods courses, okay? It will be further reiterated there. All right, excellent work. Okay, so I want you all to reflect on your coursework. So let me pull this up. Can you all see my screen? It's loading. All right. So when I was teaching at FAM, this is what the K6 looked like. I'm sure it's very similar, but you want to go through before you prepare for the test, right? And think through, okay, which courses connect to the professional? Does that make sense to everybody? Because you want to take these courses with the professional in mind. And for those of you who take it on Friday, don't worry about this. But this statement is really more for the students who are preparing, right? So a lot of this information is going to come, like those ELL questions could come out of this class. Diagnosis, assessment, and evaluation, right? You know, a lot of the, can we do more questions? I know. I just pulled these last sample questions, Sydney. I'm so sorry. I don't have any more pulled up or prepared right now. But we can talk through some other strategies if that's helpful. So just again, go through your curriculum so that you understand how to prepare for it. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is really just some general information about, taking it seriously and investing in yourself. Whoops, I didn't click on this. So this link takes you to the Florida Teacher Certification, the workshop, which you all have at your hands, tons of assessments. But if you're just getting started, you can assess your readiness by downloading, right? Map the test competencies to the skills with the course taken. So that's really important. And I can pull that up for you here. Have you all looked at these resources before?
I haven't.
Okay, you have. No, some people say yes, some people say no. This is a very helpful thing, right? Because we just went through competency 6, 7, and 8. So you could download this and then it shows, this is that matrix I was talking to you about. You input all the competencies here. That's going to help you memorize them. And then you talk about which class you covered the competency in. Okay? It's a really helpful exercise. You can do this, you can download it and make your own matrix, okay? I highly recommend you doing this because you'll be spinning your wheels trying to figure out, how do I find the answers to certain questions? Whoops. I want to stop sharing. I don't want y'all to see my whole email. Sorry about that. Okay, let me go back. Let me get rid of the elementary ed. Here we go. The other thing I want to show you all is to assess your readiness to take the test. So let me get there. Okay. So here's the blank worksheet, y'all. You can use this here. Okay. So download it. It can help you understand, just how organized and how ready you are. Because if you haven't taken some tests, some classes, then you won't need it to take it right away. You have to take it once you've take the professional once you've taken the appropriate course. And I believe this is a Word version of it so that you can easily download it. Okay. The other thing I wanted to share with you all is understanding the Pomodoro method. Have you ever heard of that? No? So the Pomodoro method is simply about pacing yourself and studying in chunks, all right? So I'm going to show you this. First, you want to identify your task for the day. 2, you have to set a timer for 25 minutes, and you want to work for the duration of that timer. Take a 5-minute break, and then you want to keep going. You want to do this 4, 5, 6 times, right, in a setting, so that every 4th break, you can take a longer break, right? 15 minutes to clear your brain. But the research shows you really can't do much studying past 25 to 30 minutes because you won't retain the information. So I'm going to click on this. Let me make sure my audio. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
We procrastinate because we believe that a project or task is too big to finish. But when you break that huge task into 25-minute segments, it becomes easily achievable. The Pomodoro technique was developed by Francesco Cirillo in 1980s. If you don't know, Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. Cirilo used a kitchen timer shaped like a tomato as his personal timer when he was a university student, and thus the method's name. The technique can help you power through distractions and get things done while taking frequent breaks. Best of all, it's probably one of the simplest productivity methods to implement since all you need is a timer. Here's how to get started with Pomodoro. Number 1, choose a task to be accomplished. Number 2, set the timer to 25 minutes and work until the timer rings. Number 3, take a 5-minute break and restart the task. Number 4, take a longer break every 4 Pomodoro sessions. Simple, right? Let's break it down a bit further. When choosing the task you want to accomplish, make sure it's just one task. If you want to study, don't check your phone or browse Facebook at the same time. You don't want to decrease your productivity by working on 5 things at once. I've already discussed how multitasking is ineffective in another video. Do what you can to minimize interruptions and make sure that everything you don't need is put away before you begin. Shut your office door, turn off your phone, and close all unnecessary websites. Also, prepare everything you need for the task at hand, as it will mess with your focus if you run around looking for things that you might need. Like a cooking chef, get all your ingredients ready. Another thing you would want to have at hand is a notepad and a pen. When you're working, your mind might wander off a bit. It's not uncommon to suddenly remember that you need to take out the trash, call your friend before lunch, etc. Don't allow yourself to become distracted if ideas or thoughts about other things pop into your head. Write them down on your notepad and set them aside for later. For now, focus on your set task. Got everything ready? Great, time to start the timer. You don't actually need to go out and buy a special tomato-shaped kitchen timer. The countdown app built into your smartphone will do. When setting a time, it doesn't have to be exactly 25 minutes either. The creator of the technique used it for 25, but for you it might be more productive if you set the timer for 20 or maybe 30 minutes. I highly recommend you experiment with session lengths and find what works best for you. After all, the technique is not set in stone and should be customized to your length of focus before you need a break. For me, the Pomodoro technique is just a way of breaking that mental resistance we often have before starting something. That's why I use it to get the wheel rolling. It's hard for me to get started, but I find it super easy to keep on going. For that reason, I'll often find myself still hammering away at a task after the timer already buzzed. When I start losing focus, that's when I'll take a break. Each focus session is 1 Pomodoro. When you complete 1 session, you take a 5-minute break before starting a new one. However, this may not suit everyone. Some people might find regular short breaks too distracting, especially if they come at times when inspiration is flowing. Like I said, I often just continue my session without stopping. What you do during the break is also completely up to you. Get a glass of water to stay hydrated, go to the bathroom if you need to, or do something from your to-do list. Personally, I always stretch because the stiffness from sitting in a chair starts killing me otherwise. When the break is over, reset your timer for the next session and continue your work. When you've completed 4 Pomodoro sessions, take a 20 to 30-minute break. Use it to have lunch, go for a walk, or read a book. Anything works as long as it takes you away from your desk for a while and clears your mind of what you were doing before. The goal of Pomodoro technique is to help you to get into the zone and focus, but it's also to remind you to come up for air. It can also help you find your sweet spot, since tracking your completed Pomodoros can help you understand how you're spending your time. You can pinpoint the times during the day when you are most likely to focus properly and times when you struggle to get things done. That way you can adjust the way you work. And I'll be honest, I rarely complete all 4 Pomodoro sessions. Since I usually keep on going after the timer rings, my 1 session is usually way longer than 25 minutes and there is no need to do multiple sessions. Also, sometimes I'm just having a bad day or I'm feeling lazy and I'll only complete 1 25-minute session and call it a day. To me, maintaining the habit is more important than the length of time spent on the task. Even if I only did 1 25-minute session, I still accomplished something that day and didn't break my habit. Alright, now that I've covered everything, I highly suggest you try out the Pomodoro technique yourself. It has been my go-to strategy when I need to get something done and is yet to fail me. Hope it works for you as much as it works for me and helps you become better than yesterday.
All right.
I need.
So I really believe in that strategy. I took a Coursera class a few years ago with learning how to learn. I did it because I was trying to figure out how to teach my little children because the brain is a very interesting thing. And so I learned some strategies, and that's how I learned about the Pomodoro technique. So again, it's just managing the time. It's making sure that you are well organized and prepared, and then also using those materials like the downloadable course matrix, because a lot of this refers you back to the courses that covered the competency. Okay, that let that be your first step, and then pick up your practice manuals and your practice study guides. The questions that I did with you all today, they come from a normal FTCE professional study guide. You're going to have a variety of questions. But the main thing is to always understand the type of question, right? Is it a scenario question? Is it you're thinking through the various types of questions so that you know exactly what you're being asked. Is it a direct question? Is it a sentence completion question? Or is it a scenario question? And once you understand the types of questions, you'll be able to go in and execute with the appropriate answer. Does that make sense to everybody? How are you all feeling?